Go ahead.
Yeah, sure. So my argument is going to be that within the Old Testament, the angel of the Lord is directly referred to as. So in Genesis 16:7-13, you have him directly referred as Yahweh. The angel is the one who multiplies the descendants. Once again, Genesis 21:17-21, the messenger is the one who says, "Take." Genesis 22, God calls upon Abraham to sacrifice Isaac. But then in verses 1-12, it says that the sacrifice was to the messenger. Likewise, in Genesis 13, it says that the God of Beth is the angel of the Lord. Then in Genesis 48, within the are equated as Exodus 3, the
Yeah.
angel is the one of the bush.
Okay,
Exodus
so
14:19, the messenger is the one who led Israel's army by night, which states that the messenger is the one who actually saved Israel. Note that there's only one savior. There are not two saviors. You can point out how where in the ancient Near East, divine names symbolize power and essence, and so therefore it follows that the angel has God's essence in him. In Judges 2:1, the angel is the one who makes the covenant. He's the one who saved the people out of Egypt. Judges 6, the messenger. Judges 13, Manoah falls face when really afraid that she will die, for she saw the angel face to face, which is important because that motif is only applied to Yahweh. All right, yeah, that's my opening. You can give your opening.
yeah, sure. I'll bring up one point. So I agree that the angel speaks right as if he is God, and he is dressed as if he is God, because he's speaking right because God is speaking through him because he is the messenger.
Where does the text say that? Yeah, where does the text say that God is speaking through him? Therefore, he can claim things, I am God, and yet still be a creature.
because because his name is called the messenger, so he is acting as a messenger. That's his name.
Yeah, sure, he's acting as a messenger, but being a messenger doesn't entail that you have the ability to claim to be God.
No,
That's just a
because
non sequitur.
he never, because God is speaking through him. He is a messenger.
Yeah,
So
God
God is
speaks to
speaking
the
in the
prophets
first
as well. They're
person
not
through
addressed
him.
as Yahweh.
No, it's very
Yeah,
simple.
but
God is
The
speaking.
God speaks to the prophets as well. They're not addressed as Yahweh. So that argument is also
Wait,
fair.
can you please not talk over me, sucker? Right, because we see that the angel of the Lord has the title messenger of the Lord. So he is a messenger. So he speaks in the first person. That's why he speaks as if he is God, because he's a messenger. By default, that's his name.
Yeah, sure. I understand that he's a messenger, but you're just saying that a messenger means that he can speak in the first person as God. That's only applicable if you want to say that he's directly quoting God, but that's not indicated in the text.
No,
In fact, the
it
text
is
is otherwise.
explicitly
Because, oh,
indicated.
hold on. You said don't interrupt you. I didn't interrupt you, so
No,
let me make
because
my
you
turn now.
paused.
Okay, well, in the text, it doesn't indicate that he's merely quoting God. In fact, he introduces himself by saying, I am the God of Bethel, or something equivalent, which implies that's his introduction. That's not something a mere messenger says. If you're a messenger, you're going to begin with, thus says the Lord, or something like that. You're not just going to introduce yourself as the Lord. That's just going to cause confusion, and that creates epistemic problems. Because then you can't ever know if something is the Lord or if it's just a messenger speaking in the place of the Lord.
No, because no, we can clearly know it's the Lord. First of all, no one can see him and live. First of all, and secondly, he has the ability to speak in the first person. Why? Because he has the title of messenger. By the Hebrew definition of that word, he has the ability to speak in the first person as if he is God, because he is a messenger, so he speaks in the complete first person. The text says that literally by his name. His name is his definition.
Are you done?
Yeah.
Or okay, yeah. So once again, you're just assuming your paradigm here. I'm not just gonna grant that he's a messenger, therefore he can speak as if he's God. When he says, "I am the God of Bethel," the referent of "I" is going to be the angel of the Lord. And if the referent of "I" is the angel of the Lord, and the angel of the Lord is the one being predicated the God of Bethel, it follows that he's the God of Bethel. That's just how subjects and predicates work. So by saying this, you're not actually getting anything done. You're just saying that he's a messenger and assuming that therefore your position is proof. You haven't actually demonstrated that being a messenger entails that.
Okay. Are you like done now? Okay, good.
Yeah.
Okay, so first of all, you assume that my position. First of all, my position is explicit in the text because he is called the messenger. Now, you're assuming something that if he says so, so he is. No, because he could be a messenger. It's possible linguistically for him to be a messenger. If you want to take it literally, and he is actually God, right, then fine. So you can take that literally. But I'm not going to take it literally. I'm going to take his name literally, called the messenger. So if you want to accuse me of presupposing my worldview, then I can say the same thing to you because you're presupposing it as well.
Yeah, so that doesn't work because I'm not presupposing anything new about how messengers work. This is just how linguistics works standardly. This is why I brought up how subjects and predicates work, and how in the statement, like, I am the God of Bethel, the subject there is the angel of the Lord, the predicate is God of Bethel. And unless you want to, and if you want to say that, like, okay, well, the subject can be the angel of the Lord, and yet the angel of the Lord isn't the God of Bethel in that sentence, that's going to be ad hoc because that's not how we use subject and predicate typically. So, no, my argument doesn't presuppose anything. It's perfectly in line with how language works in the standard case. Whereas your argument, you're just saying he's a messenger, therefore he can speak in the first person as God without any indication that it's a quote besides just he's a messenger. Well, that doesn't work because once again, even though the prophets were messengers, they still introduced themselves by saying, "Thus says the Lord." They did not just say, "I am the Yahweh who saved you from Egypt." They said, "Thus says the Lord, I am the Yahweh who saved you from Egypt," where that's going to be a quotation. On top of that, right? Once again, the angel of the Lord doesn't introduce himself as a messenger. He just says, "I am," and then he makes claims. If he is just a mere messenger and nothing else, then introducing yourself as the Lord is going to create confusion because there's no way for the recipient of the message to know that this is just a mere angel, because they're just hearing this entity referring to themselves as Yahweh. And since they have no prior knowledge of this, most likely, or they have limited knowledge of this, remember, they're not reading the text, they're just experiencing it. The first thought in their head is just going to be, "Oh, I'm just speaking to Yahweh," which is why it causes epistemic problems. Because then, in any case where someone has a vision, they're incapable of knowing if what they're seeing is a creature or if it's actually God.
Are you done?
Yeah.
Okay, so if you want to take it like that, that's fine. But I'm just going to take it via his name, and he is called the messenger of the Lord. So the Lord is speaking through him. That's my justification by the Hebrew word. And you want to speak about languages and stuff, so please tell me how the messenger of the Lord isn't the messenger of the Lord.
Yeah, I never deny that the messenger of the Lord is the messenger of the Lord. I'm saying that he is the messenger of the Lord. No one denies that here. So that's just a straw man. Second of all, you're just saying that, yeah, I'm going to take his name literally messenger, meaning that the Lord is speaking through him. Okay. Well, how does that mean he can speak in the first person as if he is the Lord without being the Lord and without quoting anything? You're just saying he's the messenger, therefore he can. But can you prove the conditional that if the messenger is a messenger, he can speak as the Lord in the first person?
Yeah, sure. So the absolute justification I'll be giving you is the fact that he's a messenger, so he can speak on behalf and if he is the sender. That's the whole point, and that's my justification of the messenger of the Lord. If you want to take the messenger of the Lord is the Lord himself, fine. But I'm going to take the messenger of the Lord being the messenger, the external message from the Lord.
Yeah, so I asked you to prove the conditional, and all you did was restate the conditional. That's just circular. There's nothing else for me to say. You, once again, you're just assuming your conclusion to prove it, because I asked you, prove the conditional. The messenger is a messenger, therefore he can speak in the first person as the Lord. And your response was, well, he can do it because he's a messenger. That's just begging the question.
No, it's not. It's via his name. His name is his definition. So I'm using the Hebrew word for his name as my justification. The fact that you can logically read something as a messenger of the Lord. So he's speaking as if he's the first person. Also in Exodus 23:20 it says that my name is in the messenger. My name is in the angel. So because the angel has his name in him, so he is now a complete representation of the Lord. He is not the Lord. People address him as the Lord, because he is a messenger of the Lord. That's my
Yeah,
justification
bro.
by his name.
Yeah, bro. Once again, you're just restating the conditional. I'm asking you to prove it, and you're just restating it. Second of all, the angel has the name doesn't help you because in the ancient Near East, name connotates power and essence. To have the name Yahweh is to have the power and essence of Yahweh. So by conceding that the angel has the name of Yahweh, you would be implicitly conceding that the angel is consubstantial with Yahweh and has the same energies as him, which would just make you Trinitarian because that's what we believe.
Okay, by using the standards of the Near East, when God Himself warned Israel from from learning foreign stuff, so to use foreign stuff as a divinely biblical support when God Himself warns Israel, and 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 obviously punishes them. So it's not wise to use the Near East as a support when God Himself called out for it. Now, secondly, we see in Exodus 23:20 that his name is in him. Name is his representation. So now he has the representation of God in him. This is the first proof we see, and by the definition of his name, that's my justification. Because the messenger of the Lord is the messenger of X, so they are distinct. The messenger and the sender, they are distinct via name. If you want to assume both of the names are the same thing, then why would it say that? Then why would the text say "messenger of the Lord" if it is actually the Lord in, complete essence?
Yeah, so your entire argument there was just basically just summarized as the ancient Near East was condemned. Therefore, we can't use ancient Near Eastern context to interpret the Bible, but that does not follow at all. What was contested by God was the usage of ancient Near Eastern idols and religious practices in certain contexts. That doesn't entail that we cannot use the ancient Near Eastern context to therefore interpret the biblical text. This is because the conceptual background of the Hebrew authors is going to be the ancient Near Eastern background. So when they hear terms like name or substance or anything like that, they're going to conceptualize it using the same frameworks that their neighbors are using, except a little bit modified. So, no, your critique doesn't help anything. In fact, even the Bible assumes this position. So, for example, when it talks about how the name of God cannot be used in vain, that presupposes the ancient Near Eastern background about names connotating essence and power. And you can look at how commentaries, modern scholarly commentaries, that is, like how John Walton covers this in his ancient Near Eastern background to the Old Testament, and how he explains that the thought process behind the command was that name is important and name connotates essence and power. So using the divine name inappropriately is to basically use a referent of God's essence inappropriately.
Okay, so you are speaking about how the Near East was involved in the Old Testament. So I want you to prove how the prophets of the Old Testament taught the Near East philosophy and tradition, because you've been quoting them as a way. So I want you to prove that the Old Testament Jews, the prophets themselves, taught this tradition of the Near East.
Yeah, so once again, this is just going to be assumed in their conceptual background. If you mean where do they teach this, I already showed you. When in Exodus it says, do not blaspheme God's name or do not take God's name in vain, that assumes an ancient Near Eastern background. We already know from other texts that this is going to be in their background, that name means essence and power. And so the best explanation as to when we see the Israelites use things like name or use things like the angel had the name in him, the best explanation for that is they're using the word name the same way that it's used in that same cultural context. To say otherwise would be ad hoc. There's no condemnation of the ancient Near Eastern usage of name to connotate essence and power within the Old Testament. On top of that, whenever you see things like "my name dwells in the temple," that's going to be a reference to how God's presence is in the temple, which is going to refer to how God is present in the temple through His power, which is also what we affirm, that God is omnipresent through His activity or power. So once again, the Old Testament not only does it assume it, but it also confirms it.
Yeah, so I want you to prove it, please, that the Old Testament prophets taught this way of the Near East. I want you to prove it.
Yeah, I just did.
No,
Yeah, I
you
just did.
didn't. You're bringing
Can you refute my argument?
implications. No, please just let
Yeah,
me
can you
finish.
refute my argument? Yeah,
So
can you
you
refute my
bring
argument?
implications, and you haven't proved that the biblical prophets believed or learned the Far East tradition. I want you to prove it, please.
Yeah, I already gave a lengthy argument for it. If you're not going to respond, then there's nothing else to
No,
say.
because none of you have, because none of the points that you brought up is objective. You cannot prove it. You're
All right,
assuming
can
it
you steel man one of
via
my points?
implication. You
All
haven't
right, steel man one of my
explicitly
points.
fulfilled it.
Yeah, so can you steel man my points? So if you think they're not objective, you clearly can comprehend them and you can conceptualize them. So can you name one argument I gave?
I don't have to. I understand your point.
Well, no, you said they're not. You said they're not objective, right? So you can conceptualize my argument. So what argument did I give?
All of the argument that you gave were regarding the Near Eastern tradition.
Yeah, what was it?
I don't have to repeat.
Well, I mean, you said it was a. You said my argument wasn't
Yeah,
objective.
I
I've
said
been
my
able to steel
point. Are
man
you
it
going to
apart.
respond, or
What was my?
you just want to ask questions?
You can respond. I mean, I'm just curious. What was my argument? Yeah, bro, we're all on mute. You can respond if you want.
No, there's nothing for me to say. I said my point.
Yeah,
I gave you
yeah,
my
but you didn't respond.
justification for the Old Testament that the name, the messenger of the Lord, is external to the Lord. He is a messenger, so we are speaking as if he is God. That's his conduit between God and the human. The messenger is the phone. God is speaking, we are the reciprocants. The messenger of the Lord is the vessel that acts for God, so he speaks as if he is God. He is addressed as God because he is God being spoken through this entity. That's my justification. And also because in Hebrew, the name, right, can denote authority and power and his ability to be represented as his sender. This is why David says many times regarding his name and for people not to blaspheme his name.
So, like, is that your closing statement, or is that your response to what I said?
No, that's my justification for my point that the angel of the Lord is by definition external to his sender via the two distinctions, via the two different names. His introduction as being called the messenger is my justification. If you want to say that they're both equal because he is speaking as if he is that person, you can take that position. But I'm going to take my position, which I have justified.
Yeah, I think you're just assuming here that being a messenger means he's extrinsic to God rather than being relationally distinct. Because we affirm that the angel of the Lord is distinct from the Lord in a sense. It's just that we say that this is a relative distinction, not an absolute one. So it would be up to you to prove that it's an absolute one, given that the only distinction given is just that this person is a messenger of another person. However, at the same time, there's clearly an identity in terms of being between the two, because as I said, the angel has the divine name. The divine name connotates essence and power, so therefore the angel has the essence and power. And I've yet to see you give an argument against that that's actually cogent. You weren't even able to understand my argument for it.
Yes, so at least you agree with my premise that they are distinct. Now you say they are distinct, yet they are equal. But I don't see that justification they are equal by just because he is being addressed as if he is God, or people call him God, or he speaks in the first person as if he is God. I don't see how, therefore, because those stuff are mentioned, therefore he is co-equal, co-eternal with God. I take by the principle that the messenger of the Lord is the direct fulfillment of the Lord's speech and speaking as if he is the Lord. That's my justification.
Yeah, sure. So that's not even the argument that I brought up this time. I brought up the argument about name being essence and power. So you clearly didn't even listen to my response. What I said once again was that the angel of the Lord has a name in him. Name connotates essence and power, meaning that to have a name is to have the essence or power associated with it. So therefore, the angel of the Lord has the divine essence and the divine energies. So therefore, the angel of the Lord is God. Just to have the divine essence is to be God. You
No, I
responded to an
disagree
argument
with
that I
that
made. Well,
completely. I
I'm still
disagree
going.
with that.
Well, hold on, I'm still going. What you responded to was an argument that, once again, I can make. Yeah, and I did make that. To quickly respond to that, I guess it would just be that you need to prove that somehow being a messenger entails that you can just speak in the first person as the person who sent you without being that person. So, for example, if a mailman comes to me for my brother, right, he can't just go up to me and say, "Hey, it's me, your brother." That's not how agency works. Second of all, you can just point out the fact that in the statements where the angel claims to be God, the subject in those sentences, so for example, when the angel says, "I am the God of Bethel," the subject, I, is going to refer to the angel of the Lord, and the predicate is going to be God of Bethel. Since the predicate applies to the subject, that being the angel of the Lord is the God of Bethel, and since God of Bethel is just another title for Yahweh, that logically entails that the angel of the Lord is Yahweh. That's just how language works. That's how logic works.
Yeah, well, just to let you know that the Old Testament is written in Hebrew, so I don't grant you that these certain practices or ways to understand English can be applied to Hebrew. Now, secondly, you agree that they are distinct and that the name here means essence. No, name can also mean name, right? Name in Hebrew can also mean name. And I actually want to ask you one question. Where in the Hebrew Old Testament, and this is my question, where in the Hebrew Old Testament can you like give me an example in which name represents essence? I want to give me one example in the Old Testament that name means
Yeah,
essence.
so first Okay, so first of all, to respond to what you said, so you don't move on from that, you're just saying once again that my argument is wrong because I said so, and you're just saying that, oh well, that's in English, therefore it doesn't apply here. No, subject and predicate is in every language possible. That's just a universal thing about language. So that doesn't fly here. You're basically just saying you're just wrong because I said so at this point. Second of all, once again, the name equals essence and power is just assumed throughout the Old Testament because that's assumed in the cultural context. This is like asking me to prove that, I don't know, medieval persons thought that God was real or that medieval persons believed in the papacy. That's just going to be assumed in the background context of their culture. So the burden of proof is not going to be on me to prove that the Israelites had this cultural context when it seems you already agree that there was this cultural context given that you haven't contested it. So if you agree that they have this cultural context in which name equals essence and power, and if there's no evidence to show that they had a different conceptual understanding, then the basic assumption is just going to be that they had that same understanding.
Yeah, so all you're doing is you're like saying assumption, 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 the basic assumption, the only assumption, the basic assumption, the only assumption. I don't have to take your assumptions. Assumptions aren't objective. Now you assume that I granted the position that Near Eastern traditions and ways to understand the text was infiltrated within the Levitical priests or within the prophets themselves. No, I don't assume that position. Because nowhere in the Old Testament does it say anything regarding the Near Eastern traditions being the way to understand the Hebrew text via the Hebrew prophets themselves. There's no biblical support for that. God Himself warns the Israelites from even learning their traditions or by even following their ways. Now, when it says following their ways, this is following their ways is also regarding their ways to understand God or like their version of God. Now you still haven't given me one example where the name represents essence. And yes, I don't assume that the Far Eastern traditions were the ways the prophet taught and understood the Old Testament. I don't grant that position whatsoever because there's no biblical support for that. Unless you can show me that there's biblical support, and that's my question to you. Show me there's biblical support for the ancient, Near Eastern traditions being the ways the prophets taught.
Yeah, so first of all, you didn't understand my argument that I gave because what I did not say was that I did not say that you granted that the Near Eastern thought infiltrated the Levitical priesthood. What I said is that you granted that the Near Eastern thought existed and that this is the cultural milieu that the Old Testament people existed in. Second of all, what I gave was not mere unjustified assumptions. I actually gave justifications for my premises. whereas you didn't. So, ironically, you would be the one assuming unjustified premises, whereas I've been careful to detail how my premises are justified. Finally, the burden of proof isn't on me to show that the Israelites would have believed something in their conceptual background. That's not up to me to prove. Once again, this is like asking me to prove that some medieval person in Western Europe believed in the papacy. That wouldn't be my burden of proof because, once again, that's in the conceptual background of their framework at the time. Likewise, it wouldn't be my burden of proof to show that someone believed in, like, let's say, 21st century America that 9/11 happened because, once again, that's just going to be something within their conceptual background. Likewise, as ancient Near Eastern scholars like John Walton note or Michael Heiser notes, the idea that name connotates essence and power, especially when it's applied to a deity, and when a deity gives a name or when a name is in a deity, that connotates the essence or power being in a deity. That's within the conceptual background of the Hebrew Israelites. And so, prima facie, that's going to be the position we should take when we're analyzing the text. Second of all, even though it's not my burden, we can just look at the passages where it talks about the name of the Lord being within, like, the temple, and then show that clearly this refers to the presence of God through his activity, which is what I said, through his power. So, yes, the Hebrew Bible does teach that God is present through his power, which it represents as God's name.
Yeah, so I would only accept your your points if you can prove to me that the Ark of the Covenant is God, because you said that's where his name dwells. So I want you to prove that the Ark of the Covenant is God.
I said that the temple is where the name dwells. I didn't say the Ark of the Covenant is where the name dwells. I don't even
Yes,
claim
but
that
the
the
Ark
Ark
of the
of the
Covenant
Covenant is God.
is in the holies of holies. That's where his name is. That's where God's dwelling place is, in the Ark of the
Yes,
Covenant. But I want you to
right.
prove
So
that
that's
it is
presence
God
through
dwelling
power.
there.
Yes, presence through power, which just confirms what I said. God is present through his activity or through his operations, which is then going to be signified with name. In the Old Testament, or essence is going to be signified with name, depending on the context, but oftentimes it means both.
Yeah, right. So the whole point that because the name of the Lord is in this temple or in the Ark of the Covenant, which is where it is in the temple, it doesn't mean that he is God. So I agree that the angel of the Lord isn't uh, God himself, because the Ark of the Covenant isn't God himself. Both have the name of God, both are called by God.
Yeah, so first of all, I don't grant that the Ark of the Covenant is called God. You'd have to prove that. Second of all, if it was called God, that would actually screw over your position so much because that would mean that you can have creatures being called God. Second of all, once again, when it comes to the name being present in the angel, that's going to be in context to the angel doing certain operations and having certain authority, meaning that the entire context of the passage where the angel gains the name, since it's about power, what it's talking about when it says, "My name is in him," it's saying that the angel has the same power as Yahweh. But to have the same power is to have the same essence. Likewise, essence is also connotated by name in this context.
Yeah, can my friend take over now? I need to go. Thank you.
All right, I'll see you. All right, should we just stop the recording there, I guess?
No, can you unmute my friend, please, so he can take over from me?
Bro, this is the same guy who was talking about how he's gonna make everyone
So
regret
can you
being like
please
a
just
kafir or
unmute him,
something,
please?
bro.
I need to go.
This is the same guy talking about how he's gonna, like, humiliate us for being like kafir, bro. Come on. Also, since Yak is done, I guess y'all can unmute. As you may have heard, I was requested to bring up my opponent's friend. I did not because this person, before the debate even began, joined the server and then the call abruptly with this camera on and decided to interrupt a already going conversation. He then started to talk about how he would fold everyone in the server and how he would make us regret not being Muslim.
Listen, bro. I'll come and I'll fold every single one of you. I'll make you regret, that you weren't Muslim quick enough. Listen, as a Yahud, as the people of Yahud or Al-Kitab, I will make you upon Islam, ya kafir.
He was muted for breaking the server rules. Further, I specifically was requested to and accepted to do a 1v1 debate against Yak. I did not agree to anything else. Now, after this happened, both Yak and his friend left the call, and since the audio is still there, I just started doing a Q&A.
I asked a question. I was just asking if you could drop some Bible verses so I could go through and read some of those tonight, like that you were referencing in the debate.
My opening statement was actually based on like a presentation that Drew did alongside with other people from the server. If Sam is here, Sam was also part of it. I can just DM it to you, bro. I got you.
Oh, okay.
All right, hold on. Is Yak still in here? I was gonna do like a Q&A, but I guess he's gone. So everyone else, yeah, bro. Everyone else, if y'all got like questions, hop in.
I'd really just like want to take through some of those verses.
Is it just the because well, obviously this is gonna be uploaded to YouTube, so you can.
I want to ask: were you making the steak well done, medium well, medium rare? What?
Yeah, y'all are funny. Y'all are funny. Yeah, hold on, bro. I'm trying to find the video. My bad for taking so long. I know I have it somewhere.
No, you're good.
No,
You're good. I will say that this is the
yeah.
first debate I've ever heard. That was a wild.
On behalf of external.
Okay, wait. I'm okay. So I fixed the recording. It's back now. All right.
When you speak, are you speaking on behalf of external?
All right, bro. I mean, yeah, I feel like agency is like that because think about it. If you accept
But can you
agency,
prove
that causes
that? Can you
massive.
prove that?
What is
Can you prove
Roy
that?
versus what isn't Roy?
Yeah,
Can
so
you
true.
prove
But
it
like, it causes
on
so
behalf
many
of external?
epistemic problems, bro. It causes so many epistemic problems. Like, how do I know when like it's actually God speaking to me and not just some like creature? Like, are there like infinite layers of creatures speaking to me? Like, hey, maybe I'm interacting with the angel, right? But actually, in fact, I'm not interacting with the angel because now the angel has his own messenger who I'm interacting with the angel through. Like, you can do this ad infinitum, meaning that there's no way for you to actually prove that you're interacting with someone and not just like a medium.
You have to keep external. You prove that. You gotta prove that.
Nah, bro, season, it's over.
Bro, you gotta prove it, bro. Come on.
Nah, bro, why? Dude, this guy's season is like underwater or something. I can barely hear him.
Where are they, bro? Bro, I was
Hold on.
literally to prove it like 5 times, bro. Oh my days.
Hold on. Yo, where do you want me to hold on. Who wanted the video? Gab. Where do you want me to put the okay, I think I got it. Yeah, Gab. Here.
Yeah.
I put it right there.
Okay.
All the just save that and all the verses are there that I used in the cause so for the opening, right? Who was the one who was like asking where I got the opening from or like said that the opening was crazy?
I mean, or that was me still.
Yeah, so basically, right? I actually haven't debated or like studied. Well, I talked about it with Micah for like a little bit, but I haven't actually debated the angel of the Lord topic for like a while. But yeah, so this was like my first time doing it, and but I still have the slides from that one presentation we did with Apollos, where we went into like depth about the angel of the Lord. So I low key just pulled up the slides and I just used that as like part of my opening because like the
Yeah,
slides
I
was actually
figured.
way longer than my opening.
I figured
Yeah.
you had sources, but
Yeah,
I guess are you saying in the Old Testament?
horrific poll posted inside chat.
Oh my
Which chat did
goodness.
you put that in?
Yeah. Side chat.
Eternal or external? Which chat did you put that in? You at me in?
Do you want me to just DM it to you?
Oh, is it DM?
Yeah, I just DM'd it to you.
I want want to ask about the Ark of the Covenant part. Do you remember what his argument was and what exactly was wrong with it?
Bro,
I
so
think he
some
misheard
I see
you.
I saw a video about it. But, like apparently, some Jews to like prove agency, they'll argue that the Ark of the Covenant is called Yahweh.
Oh,
Yeah, bro, it's kind of cooked. I can't lie.
okay. That's what. All right.
Yeah, I feel. See, the issue is right. If you're gonna say like, if you're gonna say that like the Ark of the Covenant is predicated with God, then like how does that actually escape polytheism? Because if you want to say like the Ark of the Covenant is called God, the Father is called God, well then there's not two gods because of this thing about agency. Well, can't we say the same thing about Trinity? Right? We can just say, oh well, the Father is God, the Son is God, and they don't constitute two gods because like the Father is the one source, right? It's like you can just become you can become like a Sijuwadeist, if you will, and just like spam monarchy of the Father against the LPT. So that's gonna cause like metaphysical problems when they try to critique the Trinity.
Right.
Nah, but Blind
So are
Gaming
all
asked.
are
Oh,
are all mentions in the
oh,
Old
if you
Testament the messenger of the Lord, like what you were defending, or is there time that there is like an angel delivering a message where he announces himself
I feel
not as the angel of the Lord?
so it gets more tentative the further you get into the Old Testament period, the more tentative it gets with every mention of angel. Because the
Yeah,
idea of angel being an ontological status gets solidified as time goes on. Because like originally it just meant messenger. There wasn't any ontological connotation to it. But then as time went on, it also gained the second sense where it had this ontological connotation where it's like a lesser spiritual being. And so I guess around the time of the New Testament, you kind of see both meanings get used. So like sometime John the Baptist messengers, if I remember correctly, were called angels, but then at the same time, angel is also used in this way to talk about some form of ontological inferiority.
what's the definition of ontological?
It just means relating to like being. So ontology is just the study of like being and existence. So if we're speaking about like
Okay.
ontologically inferior or something like that, well, we just mean like inferior in terms of being, right? So I guess if you want to look at it from like a Thomistic view, right? Something that is in accord with its own nature, right? So if we're going by natural law theory, is going to be greater in terms of being because being and goodness are convertible. And so since God is pure act, God is the greatest being.
Okay. Just
Yeah.
wants to take it.
So yeah, so Blind Gaming asked, I haven't followed the debate, but what do you think about the idea that the angel of the Lord is a hypostatic union? What? Yeah, bro. The idea that the angel is a hypostatic union between the second person of the Trinity and an angel is kind of funny. That's reaching, bro. That's reaching, bro. I would not take that. There's only one incarnation, so I would not accept that. Yeah, bro. That's kind of cooked. Um, Energy has a question. Wait, let me ask him to type it. Bro, I'm not answering question, Energy. Come on now. That's yeah, we're deleting this, bro. That's a
So I have
cringy question.
another. This one branches off a little bit, but you talked about a Bible verse that referenced one of the ladies in the Old Testament that saw the angel of the Lord, and so she was in fear of losing her life because of the
Uh-huh.
declaration that if you saw Jesus' face, you would die. I had a question: is like, how is there reference? Also, wasn't there somebody in the Old Testament that did claim to see like the face of the Lord and he didn't die? I'm trying to remember that.
Yeah, so the way that the patristics would solve this is they would say that like there's different senses in which you can see the Lord. So one way you can see the Lord is by seeing the Son in the incarnation. Perhaps you can see him through some manifestation as like a theophany. but nobody can like see God's essence in itself is like one way you could do it. That's how the Eastern Orthodox go about it, if I remember correctly.
Because
But
was it Moses that he saw his back and it was fine, but if
yeah,
he turned around like physically, so that would be like a visual viewing, but even that was still a lot to take in.
So with Manoah though, the reason why I brought that up, so that's Judges 13:17-23, right?
Okay.
And the idea is, first of all, interestingly enough, the angel of the Lord, you says, you should not ask me my name because you cannot comprehend it. Well, what type of name is incomprehensible except for the name Yahweh? Because remember, Yahweh connotates essence and power, right? And then on top of that, right, it is what's it called? So in verse 22 of Judges chapter 13, it says, "We have seen Elohim, we will surely die." What's
Yeah.
interesting, right, is that this is in reference to seeing the angel of the Lord.
Yeah.
And that type of motif is only applied now. Could respond to this is via like agency and saying that, oh well, via agency, that's why he was able to like make people afraid that he was seen. But the issue is that all the time throughout the Old Testament, you see it appear to people and they're afraid that the Lord, right? Or I'm sorry, they're not afraid
Yeah.
that they're seeing the Lord. Like when people see Isaiah or when people see Moses and so forth. Even when Moses is said to be a Elohim to the Pharaoh, nobody is afraid of him. Rather, they're fine with seeing him. Even the Israelites aren't afraid of seeing him. Even his close family members aren't afraid of seeing him. But when it comes to the angel of the Lord, somehow people recognize, hey, we've seen this angel. How can we survive this? And with that, obviously, like like he didn't actually die.
Yeah.
In that way indicates that the idea of the angel of the Lord being God was already present within the Israelite culture and context.
And then also, can you touch on real quick about like you're saying like title gives power and essence?
Yeah, I can post the
Is
quotes for
there
that.
is there
So
any like other than the angel of the Lord? Is there any other like examples of titles equating to power and essence
yeah,
in the Bible?
well, in the Bible, you would have to look at how. So obviously, we know that God sustains things through His power, right? So God is the sustainer
Yeah.
of the universe, and so like when it talks about God's name being in the temple, right? That's going to refer to God's activity sustaining something,
Yeah.
and what's it called? But when it comes to the general ancient Near East, which remember my argument was from the ancient Near Eastern context, basically we can deduce that, well, if you look at a lot of other ancient Near Eastern myths, the idea of a deity giving a name to someone is basically like synonymous with them giving their power. And like I referenced John Walton and Michael Heiser, but I can
Yeah.
see if I can find some more. Oh no, yeah. So in that video I sent you on the angel of the Lord,
Yep.
for anyone that wants to know, it's on our channel. It's called "The Old Testament Proves Jesus is God: A Response to Alex O'Connor." And
Yeah.
Drew has like a presentation going over this, talking about how name means essence and power, and he goes into like the ancient Near Eastern context as well. In fact, ironically, Drew would probably be a way better defender of this than me.
Yeah.
Although I don't think he would be like as I can't find. He wouldn't be like as how do I put it? Like you know how with my debating style, sometimes I'll really press the point.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't. He's not. I guess you could say that's aggressive, but it's not. Maybe you could say it's very. It's like an offensive debate style where you're really like pressing your opponent.
Yeah. It was a little bit more pressed.
Yeah, I feel like Drew is more of like a he's nonchalant, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. So, what was the referencing like the Middle Eastern? Basically, I guess you're saying like community, like how they communicated style. Like, how was that supporting the point you were making?
Yeah. So basically, when we use language, we have to
Yep.
understand that we're going to be using terms and concepts that are publicly available. We don't speak in a private language. We speak a public language, and
Hmm.
so whenever we refer to concepts, there's going to be some background to the greater culture of which you're drawing that from. So, let's say, like for example, right, when we think of terms such as substance or being or entity, we have preconceived notions of what those are based off of our
Yes.
intuitions and based off of our culture. And likewise, right, when it comes to the ancient Near East, they already had preconceived notions of what name, essence, and so forth meant when it came to like using those terms. Since they had those preconceived notions, right? And since, obviously the Israelites aren't speaking this private language that's gate kept. No, they're speaking a public language that is going to be using terms and concepts that's also used by everyone else. Clearly, they're also going to share a similar cultural and conceptual background.
Yeah. Hold on.
All right, the voice chat is dying out. I guess we can end the call soon if anyone doesn't have any other questions. Also,
One
the rest
last
of y'all,
question.
why are the rest of y'all still muted, bro? This has been long over, bro. Unmute.
I guess I got one last thing. Was basically he was asking basically for you to defend that the way you were interpreting the language, what he wanted it to be through an Israelite lens, but you're saying just because it was the surrounding areas and the surrounding language that you don't even have to narrow in that close because this is just how everybody was talking in that area at that time.
Uh-huh. I guess one way to think about it is if you were to go to the medieval world, right? Whenever
Yeah.
you see them using words like substance, accident, quiddity, and so forth, right? They're gonna have preconceived notions. And so even though, for example, Scotism is gonna rework a lot of the stuff found earlier on in the scholastics, if you find Scotus using a term and you see other scholastics using a term in a similar way, or I'm sorry, not as similar, if you just see scholastics using a term, right, that's going to be the background for Scotus using that term. And even though Scotus would disagree with them on many points, you're going to have to factor in that conceptual background. And unless there's a reason to suggest that Scotus would have like changed the definition of terms, because remember, people can use their own definitions of terms sometimes, so they can have idiosyncratic definitions. However, the issue is that whenever you're suggesting someone does that, the burden of proof is on you. So, like, if I want to say that I'm defining frog to mean a pink thing with one horn shaped like a horse, that's going to be an idiosyncratic definition of frog, right? But the issue
Okay.
is that if someone wants to suggest that I'm using this idiosyncratic definition, the burden of proof would be upon them to prove that I'm using an idiosyncratic definition. It's like, let's say I'm talking to Bustdown, and
Uh,
Bustdown talks about how he is a pet frog, right? If I say, oh yeah, well, when Bustdown said frog, he didn't actually mean the specific species that's like green and like croaks and jumps around. He actually meant like a white horse with like pink with a pink horn, right? So if I say, oh, he's just using a what's it called, an idiosyncratic definition, the burden of proof is on me to show that he's using an idiosyncratic definition and not the standard one.
okay. Okay. All right. Yeah. I appreciate that. I'm gonna watch that video tonight, and I'll hop in another time.
All right, is that it?